Board games, board game. Jess is on Kickstarter. Board games, penguin games. Jess has another. Greetings, cards games that you can get, and we'll be talking about that next. And I went to a convention last weekend, and it was lovely, and I made more than one friend, which is a lovely state to be, because board games bring people together constantly. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. is UK time. Time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. And as is usual on every other Wednesday, it's a bit of a general catch up with Jess Metheringham. A lovely
Hello.
state.
Hello,
And
hello.
what we'd, talk about a gamer's game and Getaway. We'll talk about your Kickstarter with the Christmas sales,
hmm
and we'll talk about like giving games enough attention. Although I am going to say I've still not put together my Christmas sales, but I think that I've worked out that it should just be buy three things, get in a bind junior
hmm
for as a free gift, and also
Cool.
some stickers. And that's what it's going to be. But I need to get my two latest things on, and actually maybe I've not given my two latest things enough attention, but we'll come to that. So I see Jay Foolsguard, who says, "Hello, Bez
Hey,
and Jess. I'm
hello.
listening in with half an ear while working. That is totally fine. We are honoured to have half an ear, whatever you can spare." So
Half an ear, a quarter of an ear. It's all good.
I love it. So Jess, other than the Kickstarter, which we'll get into in a minute, but is there anything else you'd like to talk about for recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights? And if anyone else wants to share anything that they've been up to, please feel free. But Jess,
Oh, recent highlights. What have I been doing recently? Nothing huge, lots of little things. In fact, what I've been doing recently has been an awful lot of fulfillment type stuff. So I
hmm,
have been getting my spreadsheets in order. So this is
okay.
this is for Library Labyrinth, which is of course a much bigger game. You know, Library Labyrinth is yay size. You know, so it's not huge, but it's 20 centimeters. You know, by 20 centimeters by 5 centimeters, and it weighs nearly a kilo. Um, so I've been doing the spreadsheets because we've got so there's a fulfillment company, ShipQuest. They're going to handle the sales, the fulfillment, which is not to the UK. You know, I'm going to do the fulfillment in the UK myself, but everything else they're going to do. And so, yeah, lots and lots of spreadsheets recently. So many spreadsheets.
I will be very interested to hear your experience with ShipQuest once all has been said and done. And
Absolutely.
I, yeah, what have I done since yesterday? Oh my gosh, not as much as I would have liked to. I did have a lovely walk through the park, which is always good. Made sure to get out while there were still sun up.
hmm
I possibly overate a tiny bit. I don't know. Given like the low amount of calories that I actually expended, I did. I was pondering a so for a while now. I don't know if I've told you this idea that I've got. It might be one of my most ambitious ideas. So this I want to make a customizable cards game, a deck construction game,
hmm
which is prioritizes truly the play experience rather than the collectability, if that makes sense. So
hmm
I would like it if I was in charge of um Magic the Gathering or whatever, I'd
hmm
be making sure that, hey, if you want to, okay, I would be considering a bit more. But like if I was doing it from first principles, if I didn't have the baggage of everything that had gone on,
hmm
which like I would be saying, okay, all these cards, if we would need them, we will reprint them. Everything will be reprinted. nothing will be scarce. But the one thing that might be interesting for collectors is alternate art. And by having alternate art for collectors, that doesn't impede upon the playability at all. And I want something really financially accessible, something where you're able to get that deck construction experience of tinkering with your deck for like £10. When you go for an afternoon to play Magic the Gathering at a pre-release event, it typically costs 25 quid, which isn't that bad. But when you consider that this is basically for an afternoon, for a few hours of entertainment, it is still kind of on the pricier side. I would like the product to cost them £10 or less. I would like to be able to be in a position where run a pre-release release event and it's £10 buy-in, you get the thing, and then you get a bit of joy of, okay, let's rummage through these things. It wouldn't be randomized. You'd get all the bits in the box, even cheaper than a living card game. So I've been thinking about how maybe there'll be double function, maybe domino size, so you can one side you tuck under things, so you make a grid kind of like Carcassonne, but it's a creature, like you've got this robot creature, or
That
maybe you've got
sounds
this
nice.
shambling
I like the
monstrosity.
idea. Robot creatures, of course, are always good, or monstrosities. I like the idea of domino-sized cards, which you've got different ends, and
Like
tucking
tuck a
under is
one
always a good idea.
under and then the other
Yeah.
square is out. And like the one that you tuck under, maybe it's got an alternative thing. So it can be, oh, you have to choose. Maybe it's a shambling monstrosity. Maybe it's a robot creature. I feel like I need one more style, but that will come once I've actually play tested it. And then the bit that you tuck over might also have an instant effect or something that you say, hey, I do that. And so each card you do this or you do that, and you have to choose. And so that's a key choice. And so there's a bit of skill in piloting the things. Every card will be modular to some degree, but it's very early days. I need to get the basic framework going, but fingers crossed, it might even be something where, in a very small manner, it comes out maybe, I don't know, maybe as part of my leaving party. I don't know,
Yeah.
that could be fun.
That sounds exciting. That sounds
Speaking of
exciting.
which, have you noticed my leaving party? Do you have it in your calendar, Jess?
It is in August, isn't it?
August 11th, 12th, and 13th.
So I saw the Facebook post or something or other the other day, and I was like, aha, August. I will remember this. So yes, it is in the calendar. Well, it's not in the
Excellent.
calendar for next year because we have a physical calendar, so I actually need to buy next year's calendar first.
Okay, so if you don't use digital calendars, well, and at some points, like I've already met your partner. I don't think I've met your kids.
No, you probably weren't there. But no, you've met my partner. Small kids might come. They'll have
I
fun.
mean, I was actually thinking about how to make it suitable for children. Like, I'm not going to tell people don't swear or anything. So it's up to the parents of if they're bothered by that sort of thing. And I'm sure that after a certain hour, people like after 10 p.m. or something, people might get rowdier. But by that time, small kids should be in bed anyway.
To be honest, a lot of parents should be in bed as well.
What time's your normal bedtime, Jess?
Well, I would really like it to be about 9:30 or 10 because
Wow.
I like a lot of sleep. But in reality, it's more like 10:30, 11. That's a more normal bedtime. But I would like it to be much earlier because, I like my sleep and there just aren't enough hours in the day. Well, there aren't
That's
enough hours in
totally
the
fair.
night. That's what it is. There are plenty of hours in the day, not enough hours in the night.
I think there's I just want to have more people around and be doing more things. I definitely find that it's always with other people. But speaking about other people and getting a crowd, you are currently crowdfunding.
I
So
am. I'm
what's going on
crowdfunding for
here?
Penguin Pairs. So this is my latest game, which is on a greetings card. So it is an actual card, something that you send to people through the post, comes with an envelope. This is a slightly smaller card. So I was doing so the cards before were A5, so it's A4 folded essentially. This one is A6, so it's smaller, but you get them in a pack. You get a pack of 5 of the same, well, 5, 10, or 15 of them. And this one, you've got counters that come inside it. So this is called Penguin Pairs. The idea is that every player cuts out 2 little counters, which are the same colour. They put them all on the track. Players then take it in turns to roll 1 die. And with that one result, rather than just saying, right, we're going up this in the sort of, snakes and ladders model, you have 4 choices with what to do with that 1 die, because you can move either penguin in either direction. So you've got 1 penguin somewhere on the track, 1 penguin somewhere else on the track. You can move your top penguin, you can move that clockwise, you can move it anti-clockwise, you can move the bottom one clockwise, you can move that anti-clockwise. So that's 4 choices with just 1 die result. You're trying to pick up fish. So along that track, there are some little fish there. You've got some, there are some rocks you climb up to get more fish, much like a ladder in Snakes and Ladders. There are some waterfalls you slide down and you get 2 fish when you slide down a waterfall. So like a snake in Snakes and Ladders, but it's a beneficial snake. So basically you're going around collecting fish. There's a little scoreboard. You keep a tally of your fish. Then so you're collecting these fish, you're getting your score. The game ends when one person reunites their penguins. So when one player gets both their penguins there onto the same space, then that means that they finish the game. Now, in my experience, it took about 5 or 6 goes for somebody to manage to do that. So that meant that every player got to have sort of 5 or 6 turns, which is about right. There were times when one player could have united their penguins, but that meant that but sometimes one of the other players was way ahead in the fish count, so they didn't want to do it. They were like, okay, I'm not going to finish the game yet. I'm going to take a different route that gets me 2 fish, which means then I'm equal in the fish count, for example. So yeah, it's a really simple little game, but it comes on a greetings card. The idea is that people can send it to people at Christmas, that they can play it. It doesn't actually say Merry Christmas on it, although it looks Christmassy, but it doesn't say Merry Christmas. You need not use it as a Christmas card. But it's simple enough that whoever you send it to will be able to work it out from the rules on the back.
Mm-mm. And that's really cool. And it's interesting, whether you need people to have, what other materials you require, because in theory it could come with all the materials. I mean, here you need to have a die, which you expect people to have a d6, and if they don't, well, okay, you can use the internet to roll a d6. With your previous thing, you needed people to have colouring in pencils, whatever. And it's an interesting question of what can you expect people to do in order to assemble these components, because here there is a little bit of colouring in required.
There's some cutting out and there's some marking on the scoreboard.
I said colouring in, didn't I? There's cutting out.
So yeah, that's a good question. What can you reasonably expect somebody to have at home? So I'm basically expecting somebody to have a pair of scissors, plus I'm expecting them to have something to write with, so a pen or a pencil, which I think is very reasonable. Plus I'm also expecting them to have something to roll a die with. So it might be that they actually have a 6-sided die, and I think quite a lot of people would be able to find that at home. But if not, then I'm expecting them to be able to look at their phone and and find one online. And I just said, just put roll a 6-sided die into your browser and you come up with something, and that's fine. So I think those expectations are quite reasonable. With one of my previous games, I think with this one, for example, which was a colouring in game, then I expected people to be able to find 4 different colours. And, people with children could definitely, but
isn't it
6 different colours. 6 different colours. And so there were some people who had lots of crayons around. There were some other people who said, well, actually, that's a bit difficult. There was a suggestion for doing patterns instead. You actually suggested originally, Bez, different patterns, stripes one way, stripes the other, etc., wiggly lines. And so that one was perhaps a little harder to go. Okay, right, where can I find 6 different colors?
I mean,
Um,
I do wonder what's the number of colors that people would normally be okay with, and how many can you reasonably distinguish? Because for sure, most people don't have like can't reach across within
mm,
2 seconds and then suddenly grab 3 colors.
yeah,
Even 3 colors might be challenging. Some people might struggle to get a single pen.
yeah,
But if we assume that you have, let's say, I think that 2 is probably a reasonable thing.
mm,
But again, I'm not sure, like maybe 1 pen and 1 pencil,
yeah,
or 2 pens of different colors. And then you could potentially, for each of them, have a clearly different, like 2 clearly different things. Like one is just doing lots of lines that
mm,
way, one is doing lines that way, or dots,
yeah,
whichever you prefer. And so you could probably get away with 4 colors, or maybe
mm,
actually play into the textures. Maybe say you've got 2 colors and also 2 textures, and there's a relationship
mm,
between these textures. There's a relationship between these colors. So, like with there are possibilities. Hey, you've got new
mm.
kind of relationships going grounds, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. To a certain extent, this depends on audience.
Mm,
So some people will have lots of colours available, and when I suppose when you as the customer, when you're picking the card, you're going to look at that and go, oh, okay, this one asks for colours. Well, I'll send that to the family who's got loads of crayons. This one asks for 5 dice. Oh, okay, well, I only know one person who's really good with that number of dice or whatever. So I think there's lots of, judging your audience.
mm, mm, mm. And definitely, I think that as time goes on and as you learn more about the crowd, it will
Mm,
be really interesting to ask them, hey, I'm wondering, maybe this is the time when, not now, obviously, because
mm.
you've settled on this lovely game of penguins going around and
Penguins! Yeah, absolutely.
doing
Penguin
all these
pairs. I
things.
really enjoy
Let
this one for
me,
Christmas. But there will be other ones
but
in the future. Yeah.
for sure, like maybe next year, early next year,
Mm,
it'll be a good thing to do some sort of survey. And we've talked about maybe
mm,
chatting about doing something together. So it might be something that we collaborate on. Like, how many
mm.
colors do you have to accessible to you? How,
Yeah.
as in pens, or how many yeah, dice do you have?
Mm,
Do you have scissors? How do you feel about cutting out things? Do you have a
mm.
small, do you feel comfortable storing your game in a envelope? How do you like to store the game? Do you
Yeah.
want to play it multiple times? Because this one's replayable, which in
Mm.
theory is an improvement over um let me
The
have you
the previous ones. Oh, go up. Yeah. So those cards. So let's see. There you've got 3 different types of cards. You've got 3 cards there that are role and color. So the green one with the tulips, the navy blue one with the stars, which is mainly hiding behind it, and then the dark red one with the hearts, which is hiding behind the other 2 cards. Those 3 are all coloring in games. So those you only play once.
and
Then
that's the question,
yeah.
like, do you prefer it to be like, how much do people want that colored in thing that they can say,
Mm,
hey, I did that, and now look at what we created as a family or whatever? Or
yeah.
conversely, do people really want something that they can play again and again? Because maybe for some people, replayability isn't that much of a big deal. Because for myself, I mean, I would be very happy to just be like, okay, play it once, and if we end up with a pretty thing at the end, that is what I think of as the perfect greetings card.
Mm,
But I'm coming from a place of privilege where I've got more than sufficient games. I've got a ridiculous number of unplayed games, so I don't need a game to play over and over. Whereas, most people might not be in the same situation. And they might be thinking, yeah, I really want something that I can really sink my teeth into and keep playing over and over for a few hours on Christmas
mm.
Day if we want.
some people really like sort of, doing the same thing multiple times. And when I went to Games Expo, then there were some little notepads I had, some little roll and color notepads, which are very similar to the front of those cards, but they've got 50 sheets in them. And I sold some of those, and one person came up and said, my daughter loved your card so much, she wanted to play it over and over again, so he bought this pack. He was one of the most enthusiastic customer I'd had, the
Brilliant.
entire time. He was like, she really loves it, and so for her, being able to replay it lots and lots of times, was something she wanted to do. But a lot of people would say, actually, no, I just want to do it once or twice. It's a card like that. You know, so I think it depends. One of the other things I'm thinking of doing on cards, so I'm thinking of doing cards that are just puzzles, as they were. So how you get those logic puzzles where there are four people who have gone out or something, and it's like, and they tell you a certain amount of information. The person with the red coat left the house at 7 o'clock. The person with the blue coat left the house at 6. Stephen left the house before Sarah. Those sort of things. And then you have to work out, what the person in the green coat was called, for example. I think those could be good to do on a card, with pictures. Perhaps not leaving the house and times, but who had the pink drink, for example, and someone has a cup of tea and someone has a mug of hot chocolate with a flake in it, and someone has a bright pink drink, and you're like, okay, that person is that person. Yeah. So that could be quite good to
I
represent on a card.
I'm also wondering again, this gets back to the accessibility issue of, do people have enough colors? But you could actually do that, frame that as a coloring in motif to say, hey, this is a bit of line work, and you have to work out who has the special. Someone's got fancy pink hot chocolate. Everyone's drinking hot chocolate, but someone's got this special blend with strawberry marshmallows. And who has that? And then, like, it gives you a bunch of clues that you can just take your time to say, okay, you color this bit in, and then the blue is next to that, and that's next to that. And then by the time you finished coloring it in, then you've got your answer.
Solve the mystery through coloring.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of thing that would be, that would be really cool to have on a card. And you can think of all sorts of, nice things you could color in there. You could have a tree with multiple fruits or something, for example. That would be a cool thing to color in. Or gifts or something, or different colored cakes with different candles in. So yeah, I think there are lots of opportunities.
Yeah, but definitely it's at the point where it is probably, I mean, I think you've done two cool things that are very different. One's, okay, you play it once and you've got to have pencils. One's, okay, you play it as many times as you want. You've got to have scissors and possibly a die or access to Google or whatever. But yeah, it's maybe at the point where you ask people, okay, what would you like to supply? What can you supply? How many times would you like to play this? What's more important to you? Which of these ideas excites you the most? But yeah, I feel like we should talk, maybe in March, because I think that would probably be a good time to start thinking about next year.
One of the things I have found was that, so this is a physically smaller card. There's the ones from last time, there's these ones. And, one of the things I have found is that, I'm selling these as packs, and people quite like the idea, for Christmas cards particularly, they like the idea of a pack all the same. I think people go off and they buy a birthday card or a Valentine's card that's a one of a kind bigger thing. But Christmas cards, actually, people quite liked the fact that they were smaller. They weren't, huge, great things. They were like, actually, they'd rather buy a pack of 10 smaller cards than buy 5 bigger ones.
Yeah, people who buy these kinds of
Mm,
greetings cards, or hey, I'm still in your life, you're still important to me.
mm,
It's going to be more than just one person. I mean,
yeah,
sure, if you're buying birthday cards, you're probably not buying for the whole year. You're probably buying for one person at a time. I
yeah.
mean, same with any other kind of cards. It would be really weird if you were to say, congratulations on your engagement, if you felt like you had to buy a card to multiple people at the time. But for sure, I
Some
think.
people do have a sort of a stash of cards. But so I've got a bit of a stash of cards. When I see a really nice birthday card, I go, "Oh yes, I'll buy that one." Um, but even when I'm buying it, I generally have a sense of, "Oh, that would be good for one of these two people." And then when it
Mm-mm.
gets closer to their birthday, I go, "Oh, do I want to send that card I bought ages ago, or shall I save it for so and so?" And but even so, there aren't that
See,
many people
that's
who do
kind of
that, I
also the
suppose.
question, because we let's obviously
Mm,
it takes more time and effort to make different cards. But if you had 20 different cards and you sold like these 20 in a pack of 20, would that even be something that people want? Or do they actually want to avoid the work of making that choice? Do people actually prefer the idea of just saying, well, let's just go through and I'll customize it with a message. That's how I'm personalizing it. But I'm not going to think about this card is for this person. Because I don't know if you've seen the Dave Gorman show, A Modern Life is Goodish, where they talk about Christmas cards or Valentine's cards, saying, hey, everyone was getting the same number of cards because everyone was giving them to everyone in the class. So really what you wanted to do was, hey, we got all these cards and we all decided
mm.
that this was the best one. We'd give that one to our best friend and that one to the person we liked a bit less. And so you've got to look at it. If you've got more wise men than little
Mm.
cute snowmen, well, you're not that popular.
Oh, I can not that precise question, and not that thing about the Dave Gorman, although, that is fun. But I can answer to a certain extent. Do people want to have, like, a pack of just cards?
Like
So,
of um,
yeah.
identical cards or different cards is the question.
So for this Kickstarter, for Penguin Pairs, then I had some things which you could add on. I had
Mm-mm-mm.
various cards from previous times. They were things you could add on, and I offered them in several different ways. You could buy one of those cards, and there are four different extra cards you can get. You can get the snakes and ladders and jelly beans. You can get the plastic currants, which is a blue one, which also involves jelly beans. You can get the roll and color tulips, and you can get the roll and color hearts, which is the Valentine's Day one. Now, I offered those as single cards, which you could add on, but I also added that you got 8 of them for £10, and you got 2 of each of those. Now, I've had, let's see, I've had for the single cards, then I've actually had 10 of one, 11 of another, 12 of another, and 13 of one. So, so those have got, so a fair number of people have gone for those, and some people have gone for sort of, one of the plastic currants and then one of the, the hearts one, for example. But I've had 15 people go for the pack of 8.
Mm-mm-mm.
Um, so I think there is there are
But that's
definitely,
maybe because it's £10 rather than the
yeah,
£16.
yeah, it's probably
Well, I
much,
guess £11
yeah,
rather than the £16 because they're
yeah.
also
So
paying
it
for the
is
shipping.
much, it is much cheaper there.
And if you'd had, let's
Mm,
say, 8 of the same card, would people have gone for that one instead?
yeah, I don't know, but I think that people did like, but nonetheless, there are quite a few people who have said, "Yeah, actually, I want to get a mixture of cards.
Mm.
I want to get I want to get a sort of a mixed bag." Which I think is really interesting.
And there is a really nice variety here
Mm,
because you've essentially, I mean, sure, the tulips and the hearts are very similar, but now you've got like 5 very different games, I think it's
mm,
fair to say. And so you are really building up this portfolio, and I think it's interesting. What do you want? Let's say you were to stick with the rule and color or whatever format. What do you want from a card that you wouldn't necessarily prioritize with a role and whatever game that you've got multiple sheets on? And I think the key thing is that you've got to really prioritize, maybe I'm wrong, the end product looking
Mm,
pretty, like something that you can say, yeah, I colored that in like this, and something where it is going to look good, that you feel
yeah.
like you can spend time on it.
The hearts, I think, is particularly good for this because it's a two-player role and color game. So that's a Valentine's card, and
Mm-mm-mm.
that is yeah, you can see the little picture there, or I can show you the picture here. So it's a two-player game that works really well because because it's quite a big space you've got to color. It's a
Mm-mm-mm.
nice card. Plus, for a lot of people, they're thinking, okay, Valentine's Day, do I get a little card? What do I send, etc. And I think this ticks a lot of the boxes, for people who are saying, well, I want to send someone a Valentine's Day card. I don't want to make it too tacky. I don't want it to be too sentimental. Oh, look, here's something to do together as a pair.
Mm-mm-mm.
So I think that ticks a lot of boxes for this.
I think that's lovely. And a quick hello to Xate, and sorry for the slow reply. It is always lovely to have you, and thank you for being here. And yeah, I'm actually, it might be the question of the day, but yeah, do you send out Valentine's cards? Do you send out cards? What cards do you send out? I am curious. Personally, I don't send out that many cards. Occasionally, like I do make something, which is typically just like a single sheet of paper with something on the back that I've kind of coloured in, and then I slip it into an envelope. So it's something that maybe they'll want to put up on the wall because I don't know, it's like something that I've decorated to hopefully be pretty. And but yeah, Sates asks if I'm actually at their place on Valentine's Day, and hmm, I
Maybe.
think I have to decide what I'm doing for the GIC. So we talked a lot about cards, and so shall we put that on hold because
Hmm. Yeah, let's move
let's talk
on.
about the. So this is not the gender identity clinic, but this is a games industry conference
Mhm.
partially run by some of the people who are. It's closely connected to UK Games Expo. Let's put it that way. And what is your
Mhm.
opinion on this based on what you know so far, Jess? Because that's
What
on
I
the
know so
13th.
far is that I have seen a couple of things about it and I haven't actually investigated it properly. So that is my opinion, that it's on my list of things I need to look at and work out whether it's and work out what's going on. So, Bez, you probably know much more than I do, so tell me more.
I was just getting up the website where I can share. So as you see,
I have seen things come in, probably some emails from Games Expo, I think, actually.
okay, so
Well,
just to
from them,
clarify, this
anyway,
is the
yeah.
first time that they've ever run this. So all of these photos are from UK Games Expo. So there's
Mhm.
no idea of really what it will look like or if any of the people in these photos will necessarily be there. Um,
I
what
think I
I
might be in one of the photos actually at some point.
uh,
Yes, 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 that middle one.
oh yes,
Yes,
and it's got your banner on it. It's
that
amazing.
was one of the reasons I saw it because a couple of people said, "Look, you're in the photo." So yes, you can see my in fact, you can see my profile and my arm and part of
Yes,
me.
yes, you
And
can
I'm sitting
see all
next
of your
to
face.
so I'm sitting next to standing next to David who is sitting, and David is Mill's partner there. So
And that looks
excellent.
like Nikki from Thames and Cosmos in the foreground. And anyway, the point
Mm,
is that all of these photos are from UK Games Expo.
yeah.
Whoops. So yeah, there's. I mean, you can check this out. But I know that any retailers who go will get a pack of stuff from, different publishers. Um, and yeah, for publishers, it is very expensive. I don't
Mhm.
think it's worth it as an indie publisher to be there to show off stuff to the distributors. I think that I would be better off just having you know, I can have
Mhm.
that private meeting with whoever I want to work with and meet up with them anyway. Again, with retailers, I would almost rather try and go there and talk to them at their store if possible. But
Mhm.
it is, as a self-publisher, I am considering it because hey, there's a lot of retailers. I could
Mhm.
say, hey, please buy my stuff. Um, and I largely it's the sense of fear of missing out. But then, yeah,
Mhm.
the industry business track, okay, there's seminars and stuff, but how valuable is that in this day and age where frankly, a a lot of what ends up being said is going to be repeated in books or online or stuff that I've seen or read or experienced anyway. B, like
Mhm.
at a certain point, like you get to a point where for it to be really useful, I would rather, well, it's not like an either or thing, but I'm if I'm to actually get some real benefit, it has to be almost like a one-to-one conversation
Mhm.
for it to be, hey, Bez, do this, rather than just saying, hey, designers, try doing this. Because with the designers, hey, try doing this, and
Mhm.
maybe I'm not within that crowd, maybe I've already done that, and so yeah, I've kind of reached a point where I've done enough that I don't necessarily benefit from that kind of non-tailored stuff. But I am really interested in obviously this open networking.
Mm. So I think I'm thinking the same thing. You know, so it's £60 for a ticket. To go as a delegate, then it's 60 quid as a ticket. Plus, of course, whatever uh, the uh, the train fare is to Birmingham. Um,
And the accommodation and everything.
so when does it?
Unless you're making it a day trip, which you could
So
do, but then
I
it's a
would
bit
be
too
making it a
expensive.
day trip. Reading is slightly closer to Birmingham than London. And because
Mm-mm.
I'm really close to the station in Reading, then it's quite straightforward. I didn't actually see when the sort of the day finished. I didn't see whether there was that much. There didn't look like there was an actual timetable um, there as yet. But I imagine that, while there will be people who are going on till, 10 o'clock, I imagine that actually a lot of things will be finishing earlier. Um,
Mm-mm.
I imagine that the seminars will be finishing earlier. So, so to be honest, this is one of those things that was on my look at it later lists. And thinking about it right now, I'm like, yeah, but I think I'll have to perhaps look at my bank balance actually, and see whether I think it's worth it. Because it would be good just you know, to go and meet people. The networking would be good. Networking is not something which I am great at, but do they have a list of exhibitors yet? They don't, do they?
No, I was just going to point out that it is run by All About Games, who I wasn't familiar with, but it sounds like these people, Kedrick and Daniel Steele, like they have a lot of experience by the
Mm,
sounds of things, which,
yeah.
apparently Daniel's one of the people who developed SDVM games.
Mm,
So, yeah, that sounds very impressive.
yeah.
But like I look at where yeah, the Twitter with the
Mm.
little thing of Alex Cannon and friends of the
Oh,
show,
very nice.
and they've got 46 followers and no one following. And I know that's not a like I know some
Yeah.
people aren't great on social media, but it feels like surely they should at least be following UK Games Expo and some of the, like, this is kind of almost, yeah, shouldn't they be following themselves? And like 46, I understand that with industry stuff, it, because it's not consumer facing, you don't get that much, interaction necessarily, but it kind of doesn't look like there's a lot of buzz going on, at least right now. With
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It just looks a bit uncertain, doesn't it?
I mean,
But
we've got here Cubicle 7 will be attending. Um, there's a link to more info. And if I push down, that is everything that it's ever tweeted, literally ever.
Twitter isn't necessarily the best way to do these
And
things,
if I
but
follow the
it
link,
depends.
then they don't
Yeah.
have a thing.
Where are
Yeah.
they? Do they have social media? So let's look at their Facebook then and their LinkedIn.
Whoops, so they're
Again, Facebook, 57 followers of the that's a page on Facebook,
yep.
and
We're
indeed the
looking.
same. In fact, is that exactly the same content?
I think it is exact. No. Yes, it is. It is exactly the same content. It has been cross-posted. Um, and it is just board games. So there is no video game focus. There are no video games here. So we know that there's at least one exhibitor. And considering it's in February, I have to make a decision of whether I'm going to be in Nuremberg, because frankly, it was a question for me. Do I come back from Germany in order to go there? And so, Xate, let me know what you think. But I'm aware that I need to buy my tickets. So I'm going to say that I'm going to come back on maybe the 15th or 16th, unless you want to do something yourself on the 14th. But yeah, I would like to be in London for the Friday, and I'm prioritizing the Friday more than the Games Industry Conference and also Friendly Board Gamer Convention, because I know I will reach people there. I
Yeah.
don't know. But yeah, what are you doing for Valentine's Day? Let us know, unless you'd
Ooh.
rather.
Maybe I could get my parents to take the kids away again. So, in fact, recent highlight. This is, I shouldn't have missed this out. So, let's skip back and do a recent highlight, because we might do this again for Valentine's Day. My mum took both of my children away for the whole weekend. Now, me and my partner were working, but because we don't have the kids away very often, it was like, exciting things. We were able to go out all by ourselves, no children. We went and we went and got ice cream, and I felt that was a very romantic thing to do. We went and got
Lovely.
ice cream all by ourselves. And I'm thinking maybe we should do that for Valentine's Day. Maybe if I can persuade my parents to take my children away, then we'll go and do something like that. Maybe play a game, just the two of us.
I mean, having a bit of time, I think that sounds like a brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. It's a little thing, which is brilliant. So yeah, having other people, time to yourself where it's arranged, where you're saying, I'm doing this thing. It's not just lazing around, which can be its own good thing if you're planning to laze around. But I think that saying, hey, we've got the time to do this, to get ice cream, or to, hey, we are planning to just sit and read, whatever. I think having that opportunity is a brilliant thing.
Yeah.
But as always, and J Fool's Guard is considering Nuremberg. Yeah, I encourage you to go if you've got anything to pitch. It's a really good place, and just go and wander around. It's but I'm also biased. I've been there once. It's been good times. But let me show you the Gamers Gaming Getaway photos, because I don't. What time do you need to skedaddle? Because
I am fine for ages. Don't worry.
Okay, so here's a bus journey, and then I had a train journey. There were not many people, and also on the train journey, I invented a new LDEC game. So the LDEC game is about active listening, and you look at the cards one at a time. You need to, when you hear a word in the podcast or song that you're listening to that it contains one of the two letters on the card. You repeat that word, and then you put it to the side. Your objective is to work through the entire deck. So you take that card, you flip it over, you put it at the bottom. I was trying to make another game that I didn't need a table for because I didn't have a table, but I still wanted to play a game and kind of listen to a podcast. So this allowed me to do both. Hooray!
Yay!
And
Yay!
yeah, when I got below 2 minutes, I was like, yeah, I'm really good at this. Like 2 minutes 22 was where I started. I managed to get there for lunchtime thanks to Ellie Dix, lovely person. This is a veggie
Hurrah!
burger. I had the vegetarian badge because I'm not a vegetarian, but I don't want to be eating meat all the time. And I said, like, if there's a vegetarian option, I'll go for it. So this was a veggie burger
Very
and
nice.
like lovely salad. And it was a good time. I was obviously in time for my 2 p.m. event. So here I am, kind of set up. It is a quiet hall. There's like a couple of big halls. When I say big halls, it's like, this is basically the width. It's about 4 tables long, as you can see. I had a nice group of 7 players playing one of my latest games, a game about setting scenarios that people would do for different lengths of time. I don't know if I've told you about this one.
No. So what? Yeah. Hang on. Tell me about it. What sort of scenarios and what sort of lengths of time?
So actually, I don't want to open up a box, even though it's right here, because then that would be another bag. But so the red card there is your motivation, and then use an orange, which is the verb, a yellow, which is the kind of person or being, and then the green and blue are bonuses which you can use or not use as you wish. So it might be for a tasty meal, lick the ears of a hermit who is always withering away and is angry for some strange reason. And then the scenario setter would say this, and after a few more games over the weekend, we've decided that we slightly prefer the shared questions bit where all the other people, not the scenario setter, so the scenario setter literally just gets these 5 cards, and with these 5 cards, there's a ridiculous number of possible scenarios you could set. It's literally thousands. And because on each of these 5 cards, you've got 1 orange, 1 yellow, 1 blue, and 1 green, and then 4 possible reds all on their own as a motivation. So you're doing it to avoid death, for the fun of it, for a tasty meal, or for all the money you want. And then everyone else makes a vote of how long they would do it for. Would they do it never, no, or seconds or minutes, hours or days, weeks or a few months, years and years, or indeed always forever? So which of these would you be happy to do it for?
Nice.
And the scenario setter gets a point for every different vote. Voters get a point for everyone who voted the same as them. So you're trying to vote with the majority. You also think what other people would do, but the scenario setter is trying to confuse you. And there was one person who was clearly the best at confusing everyone. And it was Great in the middle there, in the green t-shirt.
Right. That green t-shirt is the same color as the carpet. So I think they've also confused everybody by their choice of clothes as well. Excellent.
Yes, it's kind of like they've got they're invisible and they've got no torso.
No.
I did get a lot of cards colored in. I think we had
those are gorgeous.
Probably out of the, what is it, 52, 53? I think it's 36 plus 16. It's 52. Definitely 52. Out of the 52 images, I would say that a good 40 of them were nicely colored in. And then at the end, it was like, okay, we've got hardly any time. Okay, everyone please color in. And then people helped me color in quickly. But then it came to 2 o'clock and I just did a scribble on a whole bunch of them.
Yep.
So they are technically colored in, but not really. It was a beautiful area. I went out. This is me having a bit of a wander on Friday evening just to get outside. Rustling leaves, a lovely roll and write that I played with Ellie Dixon.
Somebody else has said that it was a really nice, roll and ride. I've heard good things about that.
And going to do a bit of jiggling and wriggling, as Stream Elements reminds me. So what's going on here is you roll 2 dice, you draw a square or rectangle at that size. For example, here you draw a 3x1 rectangle, which is very nice. So it can slip in nicely. And you're trying to use a lot of the icons on the board. And all of these, you make squares, cross off one of the types of icons that are in there. So if you've got 3 of the little trees, you could cross off all 3 of those little trees. But you wouldn't be able to cross off any of the other kinds of icons, if that makes sense. So you decide which kind of icon are you going for, and it goes through 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter. Each of them plays with the river in the middle in a different way. One of them you lose points for crossing it. One of them you gain points for crossing it. One of them you just can't cross it at all. One of them it just doesn't matter. It might as well not be there. And each of them has little different icons that seem similar, but it's kind of like different levels almost. And so you play through these 4 levels of the game. The idea being like, yeah, they are different games, and you don't necessarily have an overall winner, although you could, I guess, add up all the scores, but we didn't bother. It was like, just, oh, I did the best on that one. You did the best on that one. I mean, honestly, I didn't do the best on any of them. I clearly wasn't that good at this game. But yeah, it definitely forced me to think about things in a new way. It was very interesting. And yeah, here's some more people playing a game about setting scenarios that people would do for different lengths of time. With Annie and Hector and Hannah and Kate, who I ended up spending quite a bit of time with. We played Just One, a lovely game, and several other things. Anomia, a lot of quick games that allowed me to just spend time interacting with people. Again, you can see who drew these, like one of them was signed by me. You can hopefully read the writing. But we've got Chantal, Chris, Ellie, Caroline, and I don't know what the bottom right one is. I think that might have been Annie. But yeah, just everyone was doing fantastic colouring in. It was a lovely place, as I said. And here's the stairs. I was on the top floor. And every day there was a big whiteboard with, hey, here's all the things that are going on today. As you can see, there's quite a lot going on. This is a Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see. Oh.
And on the Saturday, what I ended up doing was after breakfast, I had my first go at fighting LARP. This was a stage photo, I should say.
With weapons.
Yes, not just Nordic LARP where you're in a room and you're talking and you're feeling the emotions. It's also, we are just hitting other people. I was told to wear as much black as possible. So you can see my leggings are not red. And my skirt is as black as I could get it. But I was given this black top as a costume, and it was like a dim one. And I'm like a sort of zombie person where I deal with death on a daily basis, but it's not necessarily clear good or bad in this world. But we were the ostensible heroes, and
That expression is great, though. Yeah, I can see you going, ah!
Yeah, it was absolutely fun. And hello, Yoda. It's lovely to see you here. I mean, I'm really happy that I got a chance to finally try this. And you can see a few of my other compatriots. There's my weapon, conveniently placed into a tree. So we would smack people for a while, and then we'd have this timeout where during the timeout, we'd have to say how much health we lost. We double check. And so every time we got hit, you would have to shout how much damage you were dealing. So most people would say single, 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 single. But if you were strong, like my character, it didn't have any magic, but I was just strong. So I would hit like, people and say triple, no, triple, triple, triple. And also it was a blunt weapon, which meant
Mhm.
that I could hit some people that other people couldn't hit, which was quite fun. And I had the power of freeze. I had to say power of free triple, power of free triple, power of free triple. And as you can imagine, that gets really exhausting if you're doing that every time you're hitting someone. But it does
Yeah.
basically mean that you do like a good amount of damage. And but then if someone gets close to you with a big swingy weapon, I'm lucky that the weapon I chose was physically long. But then
Mhm.
someone at a couple of points got close to me and said single, 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 single. And I was ah, but they didn't really necessarily want to kill us. Although maybe, I mean, it felt so much fun. It was more exercise than I normally do, and I'm really considering doing the full-on thing in
Mhm.
July. I was considering doing the one earlier in the year, but that would be a bit cold. So I'm considering like the one in July because I don't have anything on at that time.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, have you ever done anything like this?
No, I have not done proper LARPing before, and it looks brilliant.
I mean, I can share you the link of the one that I'm
Mm.
considering. And so it's basically the same people, just instead of it being a half-day thing, it's a 3-day thing. So you go and then you
Wow.
have to sleep in a tent and stuff. But also after lunch, I ran I don't, for some reason, I didn't take photos of a game about writing words, aiming to
Mhm.
match other folk exactly 3 times, which is a bit sad. So that was my 2 p.m. event, had a good number of people. People really enjoyed it. And this is Dungeons and Therapy, where these people, this is more of a Nordic LARP,
Brilliant. Yep.
where it's about talking, and these people are pretending to be going round um, an evil mayor, a bee holder who's actually has lots of bees,
Mhm.
um, the elvish rogue who's a kleptomaniac, the big black dog, like the symbol of depression,
Yeah.
who's just wants to make friends, a zombie who's just a little bit misunderstood, the dragon who was powerful enough and just again wants to be able to sleep, and the half orc bard. And all of these people had their own issues to sort out. And the idea was that they were
Great.
just spending in the fiction a few weeks talking to each other.
Mm.
And Jayful's Guard says previously about the fighting LARP, we did a little bit of this as kids, though wouldn't call what we did proper. Fun though. Yeah, I think there's something lovely about being kids and just saying, yeah, and I do think I like it when there's actual rules because you don't just end up saying, oh, I hit you, oh no, you didn't, and making up spells and stuff. You kind of get the sense that what you're doing is roughly balanced. Like, you know
Mm.
that you'll be able to do something and yeah, you'll have a good time. It won't be that there's never the question of, okay, exactly how powerful am I able to make these spells? Because
Mhm.
someone has looked at all of them and kind of tried to work that out for you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I can see that.
Nordic
Cool.
Clark, that was lovely. And then we still had Sunday, if I close that. Oh, no, Saturday, this
More
was the
breakfast. Oh no, that's
dinner.
dinner.
Um, More coloured in stuff by
Colours.
lovely people. Um, oh, this was Friday. We had a special tournament in the dark of Shape Invaders, which is
Oh.
a reimagining of Robert's Four Elements game. It's 1 versus 1. I think this is definitely nicer
Mhm.
because it's got Dave's new rule of if you lose your life, rather than just having one life and that's it, and you can be
Mhm.
knocked out straight away, you've got these barriers. And the barriers you can swap out one of them for your mothership. And so that means that
Okay.
the game at least lasts a little bit longer and it
Mhm.
can quite often end up in mothership versus mothership, which is really exciting to
Mm.
see. I finished up actually, I think my last game of the night was Azul with the
I
lovely
love
Joss,
Azul. I
and I
love
scored
Azul.
97 points, which is that
Mm.
good? I'm not sure. It was a bit
Kind of
better than.
depends who you're playing against, I suppose. Well, it does with
Hmm.
me anyway. Yeah, it depends whether they've taken all the the good ones.
And oh yes, there was a bit of yogi at the end. As you can see, people really
Mm.
getting into it. Put up there. Um, yeah,
Cards
still having
behind
fun.
glasses.
And yeah.
On elbows.
literally
Yes.
sitting on the floor. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And Sunday was a great day. My playtesting my game about colouring in, which seems to be going well. I've got some interesting feedback about the quality of pens, which
Mm.
Denise on the left said maybe these pens are a bit too much, like a bit too thick, which I
Mm.
think I'll carry on with them for playtesting. But it's also a question of what should I encourage people to
Yeah,
buy.
what would people be playing with themselves? Would they have the same pens? Would they buy it in a pack with pens, or would they be using their own pens, which could vary hugely?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
This is
Oh,
my
this is your teleport stabby foot yeah, game. You were talking about this last time.
yeah, the bag building game. So I made a few changes before playing it with Tom Lovewell. So
Mhm.
what I tried was, firstly, rather than just placing a 2 by 2 grid, now you're placing a 2 by 3 column, and programming is more part of it. So
Mm.
whatever your 2 by 3 column is, you need to execute those things as if you're reading a book, if you know what I mean, like top
Okay.
to bottom, left to right. And so if you need to move before you want to hit, you've got to put those movements up there. And I think probably the final thing will need double layered boards to kind
Mm.
of make sure that you place
Yeah.
them correctly. And as you can see, some things have magic cost in the top left, like teleport, and double stabby
Mhm.
needs extra magic. And this was the final things that I had in my bag at the end of the game. So I still had a couple of blanks, which were because, Tom kept hitting me. And when you hit people, you give them blanks, which is fair enough. But
Mhm.
the hexagons seem to work well. It feels roughly in the ballpark of balance, but I'm less bothered
Mm.
about the balance right now and just more bothered about getting the basic idea correct. And so this is going to be again my main focus this Friday. And
Nice.
what I'm going to try this Friday is going to be maybe putting it in a chunk more control over the enemies, but also the experience points are all going to come from enemies. They're here. I was trying, okay, experience points are like a little treasure chest in the corner. You go and get them, and then you place them in another corner. So it's kind of a constant race.
Mhm.
But then that really prioritizes people who are very maneuverable. Like I had double teleports and lots of movements, which really meant boom, I can just go in straight in there. But it
Mm.
did still come down to the final turn where we were both on that one hit point. So it's basically who could grab the hitting and say stop first. And I just managed to do it by about half a second. So it was really fun. I mean, Tom, and this is, yeah, roughly what's going on. But I think next time there's going to be a lot more monsters, and there's always going to be monsters. I'm not sure how many, but yeah, when they die, you just spawn them at one of the corners again. I actually quite like this relatively small board, but
Mhm.
yeah, um, more coloring in, and yeah, the penultimate thing to show you is that here you see the finals. Zoe on the right, Phoebe on the left. So the only people who were able to play with the colored in deck were these two players. And in the end,
Yep.
who do you think won? I mean, just looking at the speed of their hands. I mean, looking at the speed
Um,
of the gathering.
the one who I can't see as much right now. The other one.
So the one who's far away from the camera.
Yeah, the one who's currently far away from the camera. That's who I
Is
think
that
probably won.
faster?
But
So,
I don't know. Oh, but then this one has got quite a lot in. This one has got quite a lot in their hands. Oh,
so
that's difficult. It could be either.
it was very close. So in the first match, Zoe was confused by the colouring in. So the colouring
Aha.
in did exactly what I thought it might do, which confused people even more. So
Mhm.
confused four little chicken legs for a tail because they were all coloured in the same, and it was a very dark colour,
Yep.
so you couldn't see it properly. And so he didn't quite look carefully enough. And so the first round went to Phoebe. It was best of three.
Mhm.
So second round, who would win? Phoebe, if Phoebe won, Phoebe would win the entire championship. If Zoe won, Zoe would have a chance to come back to it.
Yep.
And no one messed up. No one grabbed too many radishes. No one got any creatures that were similar to one another. They were totally different. So everyone followed the rules. But just by, I think it was like 3 or 4 cards, it was Phoebe.
Excellent.
So that was basically the end of
Hey!
the championship. And at this point, basically everyone was heading off, as you can see by this room, which is not the exhibitor room, but it was a bit warmer, which is why I moved in here. And I like to think everyone had a good time. And at this
Lovely.
point, I just did a bit of packing and went off. I mean, it
That
was...
looks like a photo of people who are having fun, to be honest.
Yeah, there's also Jason behind holding up the red banner because they felt like we should have some red in the photo. Although I guess it does frame Phoebe quite well because Phoebe's the only one who's properly framed in there. But
But Phoebe's the winner, so it's all okay.
Yeah, it is. And I really like, everyone, hey, this is the winner, check them out. But yeah, it's lovely. And yeah, I can't remember how Phoebe did in a giant bind, but yeah, that's also online if people want to check out the most ridiculous yogi thing ever, which will probably ever happen. But there was food and Jenga blocks and giant boxes for your head involved because you had to cover your head. Anyway,
Excellent.
what
Excellent.
Looking at it, I wanted to talk quickly about sales and new experiences, playtesting and inspiration. Sales were rubbish, so I sold 2 things.
Right.
It's not really a convention for sales. And bearing in mind, like my things, one of them was a $5 where I sold a game about writing words aimed to match other folk exactly 3 times, and I also sold a copy of a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises, where someone came up and bought that. So at least, people bought it. So that was, hey, it's nice to have that. I did give away a few things as prizes, and at least one of the people explicitly told me, oh, thank you very much. We were going to buy this, but yeah, now we've got it.
But now we've won it, so...
Which, it's like, honestly, that's kind of nice to hear that they would have bought it, and it's like, but would you really have? Because I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things for a $5 that you've not bought, but maybe they did just like that one thing, and but then that little niggling thing comes to my mind. Oh, are people only getting these things because they're free? Or I mean, like, was it just because it was under? It wasn't a busy convention. Like we're talking, I would say there were probably 50 or fewer, less than 50 people who were there for board games, if you know what I mean. Like, I would say there were, if I had to put a number on it, like, I would say there's a good chunk of people who were there for, the LARP. Like, there were a good chunk of people who were there for playing the escape room, like LARP. That was like definitely the most popular thing. There were
That sounds like fun.
a bunch of people who joined in, like, during the quiz, which was the most popular event probably. Like, during that, there were probably about, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say 7 times 8. What's that? About 42? No, that's wrong. 49, 56. 56. Let's say there were 56 people in the room, and I would say it's probably just because it's such a small convention that's why that happened. It's probably not a reflection on me. So from a business point of view, is it worth it? Definitely not in terms of sales. Like, was it worth it in terms of playtesting? Well, Tom Lovewell, who's on the right of this picture, did give me brilliant feedback for my latest game, and I really appreciated being able to try out the hexes, hearing some of their opinions on having no teleport zones. That's interesting. Having their ideas actually spawned my ideas of enemies constantly spawning, and just saying, hey, there's, maybe you start off with 12 enemies, and they're like, just, you gather them and are coming up, and like everyone gathers this, and maybe there's also familiars. You've got the generic minions that you can control and turn on the other players, or you've got your own familiar that is only for you, which might be interesting. And yeah, Tom came up with a lot of ideas, and it was nice hearing all of that, and so that was useful. And there was definitely some inspiration, but I think if there was any value in it, it was primarily in terms of my own self, my mental health, my enjoyment of having been there, trying these LARPs. I mean, Nordic LARP isn't a thing that I'm ever going to make money out of, but having people, be part of Dungeons and Therapy, that was really nice to see, and everyone afterwards talks very highly of it. And all these people like Zoe and Fire, who were basically constantly there and supporting it, and people at the 2 p.m. event who I think making that connection, and also meeting Hannah and Kate, who, fingers crossed, I might be able to talk them into helping me at some point in the future for UK Games Expo. And they seemed quite excited by the notion of stuffing balloons. So that's something that needs to be done. So,
so this is the thing, that you do get people, you get to talk to people, you get to network with people, you get to, hear people's ideas, and and so those are things which are really valuable, which are not quite the same as sales, but quite often you're going to a convention for reasons beyond just sales. So it sounds like it was a
100%.
really good weekend. It sounds like it was great
Yes.
fun.
I mean, I feel like if I have a regret, it's like this bit right here, giving games enough attention. And I released 2 new games. So last Tuesday, last Thursday, so I've not even had them for a full week yet. So last Thursday morning, I got these games. A game about setting scenarios that people do for different lengths of time, and that's the back of the cards.
Yep.
And then a game about, the other one might be a bit harder to access because it's,
Make your picture bigger so we can see them more, Bez, as well.
Oh yeah, thank you. So let me do that.
There
a
we
game
go.
about writing words, aiming to match other folk exactly 3 times, and you can get a sense of what the cards look like there.
Yeah, no, that's
and
cool.
This is a co-design with Kirsten Lunde, which is why it's got Looking Glass Games, and it's my first ever published co-design. So I am really excited with that. And the truth is, like, sure, I'll get to show these off again at at future conventions. I'll show it at Dragon Meet, but that was like the release event, and I can't again say it's brand new for this convention. And it feels like in future, like my whole thing of I'll make a new game for every convention. Sure, it's allowed me to be productive this year. It's allowed me to get stuff out there, but I think in future I would basically try and make everything in time for May, and try and get it all ready and published in time for the Herefordshire, May charity event, because that's a tiny thing. And even if I release it there, I can still say, yes, UK Games Expo is the release event, because that's like a tiny convention with like 50 people.
Yeah, it's a pre-release thing, almost.
Yeah, like it's a pre-release, and then, Adam and Elaine will be like, hey, hooray, we get to see Bez's brand new games, and that will be something that people get to see. But then at UK Games Expo, that is the place where you want to be releasing things at, the big conventions, not at a thing where there's probably going to be, frankly, yes, the fact that they got played about 3 times each, it was a bit sad. I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit sad about that, because it felt like they didn't have the attention that I would want them to have. And that's the thing, like, I feel like I've been a bit too fast. I've not been putting the rules onto Board Game Geek. I've not got like the photos. I feel like I need to slow down and make sure every game gets the attention. And okay, get that up onto my shop now, and do the Christmas sale thing that I mentioned, and make it so that buy 3 things, you get a free copy. I'll try and get that done in time for tomorrow. That will be a priority today. I'm also going to. I did also get a couple of reviewers to agree to review both of these games.
Oh, that's good then.
So, well, that's just yesterday, not at the convention, but I reached out to Harry Game Lord and I reached out to Adam. Sorry, I'm not good at
I
pronouncing
know who
Polish
you
names.
mean. I am terrible at pronouncing names as well.
But yeah, reaching out to people to say, hey, you are clearly enjoying this kind of game. Like, I don't want to send this to Luke Hector, for example, because Luke Hector doesn't review this kind of stuff. It would be a bit weird. I'm not going to show it to someone who reviews like miniatures games. That again, it would be a bit weird. I mean, maybe for my bag building game, like depending on who publishes it, that might have a miniatures in it. That would be quite cool. Am I okay with like that's a question for me? Like, do I want to? Because like there's also the whole like plastic
Well,
miniatures and
then you go
disengage.
down the route of, do you want plastics? And then you've got a whole environmental concern that you've got to think about. Personally, I wouldn't publish a miniatures game, but
But
there
like
are
if
some.
a publisher said to you, hey, we like this game, we want to add miniatures to it, and are going to sell like 50,000 copies.
Well, then actually it depends where they'd be getting the plastic from. Depending that they would, be able to guarantee that it was recycled plastic. I'd say
Oh, that's a
absolutely.
good one. If it's
So I
recycled
don't
plastic, that makes a big
know
difference.
how that might be quite difficult. And I'm not quite sure how tricky it would be. But also, it depends when you say miniatures because perhaps they might make them as sort of wooden meeples with screen printing, for example.
Yeah,
That could be
because
a
I mean
different
that's an
type of game.
alternative. I mean, when I
Mm,
say miniatures, I mean like sculpted things.
yeah.
Because for sure, I do like wooden meeples. I mean, Roots is beautiful,
Mm,
and I would love to have. And actually, yeah, what my game really needs is hexagonal bases, so your character fits exactly into the square.
mm,
But
yeah.
then, like cardboard standees work well. I mean,
Mhm.
that could be fine. And then for the little creatures, it could be like little cardboard tokens or little wooden things that move around, like little armies. I don't know. I mean, they could be all identical, and there may be another cardboard standee for each of the minis. But there's a
You could
lot of
think of all
cardboard in
sorts of
the
things.
stuff
Yeah.
of the bag. But
Mm,
yeah, anyway, that's obvious. My point is, like, in the future, I've got like games that totally aren't party games. Like I've
mhm.
got games that are a lot more cerebral than people might be expecting of me, but and some that aren't. Some that are as about as chaotic as people would expect from me. But yeah, I need to give them attention. And do you have
Mhm.
anything left to say about this? Let's call it a final topic: giving games enough attention.
It can be really difficult because when you're just working on one game, then then often, you're not giving it the right attention because you're just focusing so hard on it that you often get in a state where you can't see the wood for the trees.
Mm-mm-mm.
Um, Whereas when you've got multiple games, sometimes you do get one that sort of gets left behind a bit. So so it is a really difficult balancing act. Right now I've got one which I know is getting left behind, which is so there's a game I'm making about plastic in the ocean. And I've been
Mm-mm-mm.
making it for a while and I was, really steaming ahead on it and then I hit a bit of a bump and I was like, "Oh, okay, I need to sort that one out." And then I've kind of just not done anything with it for about a month
I
and a
think
half.
for me, the key thing is okay, if it's not been released yet, not everyone needs to be aware of it, but once it's
Mm,
been released, like people should know about it. And I
yeah.
think it's so easy at that point to just almost forget about it as a self publisher because then you're also doing all the other things, you're designing the next games and you're doing that. Like, I look at your greetings cards,
Mm.
and if I can
Well,
I
there's
and
yeah, looking at them, there are some which I haven't, there are some which I had almost forgotten about until I, did this Kickstarter, and then I was like, "Oh, I need to bring these out again."
let me
Yeah,
make
there
you
they
big.
are, and
Let me
they're
make
there as
you big.
well. Yeah. Same,
So like
yes,
the colouring in ones, so like okay, those colouring in ones, I'm very familiar with them.
yeah.
Like, but like the other ones, the snakes
So snakes and ladders and jelly beans, that's what I use for all of the cards that my children give as gifts.
and like if
Sort of
that's something that you found like yourself that people are enjoying, again, that's something
people
that
enjoy that. People
and
enjoy
like
that, and it
the thing
serves
is
a
like
real purpose.
I think for me it's been like in the since Spiel, so not I didn't have these things at Spiel,
Mhm.
but since Spiel, so basically since the middle of October, I've released three totally new games.
Mm.
Sure, they've all been kind of a deck of cards,
Yeah,
but
basically
there's been a
bargain
lots
bags.
of art, there's
Hmm.
been a lot of work that's gone into these,
Yeah.
and these are things that I feel have kind of fallen by the wayside. And
Hmm.
people really enjoyed a game about quickly grabbing cards and judging them against free descriptions. And that's
Mm.
not something that I've really been proactive at. And I think yeah, it's not enough to just make the game. It's not enough to just make it so people are able to buy it, but you also have to do it so that people are aware of it and people know what they're getting into. And I think that that's the key thing, like the marketing. Yeah. I think it's just a general lament. I've done too much in the past month, in the past 5 weeks. I feel I shouldn't have done so much for two, honestly, quite tiny
Mm.
conventions. I mean, KCON was small, but at least everyone there was there for board games,
Yep.
and yeah, a gamers gaming getaway was even smaller, and because it had such a LARPy focus,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I felt a bit sad because I'm like, hey, I'm promoting this new thing, but this is a release event and people aren't here for it. And that made me feel
Yeah.
discouraged. That made me that took the wind out of my sails. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. It's less that people don't want it. It's more that it's a not quite a misjudgment, but a misjudgment of audience. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, it was
because
released
I
at the
feel
wrong
like you
time.
knew going into it, but sometimes you can know something but not quite know it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of knew that it was a bit silly and I probably
Mm.
shouldn't, but this is kind of what I'm doing this year. I'm releasing things at all the conventions. But then I was like, yeah, I was hoping there would be, at so I had the 2 p.m. events that people joined in at, and during the meal times, I did really hype it up. I really tried to
Mhm,
promote it. I tried to encourage people to come over. I did all the shouting, and
mhm.
so like it was 7 people each day, which is a decent player
Mm.
count. But that's like with the maximum amount of hype that I can give it. Like, and then the
Yeah,
other times that it was played, that was always on me suggesting it. It wasn't someone saying, "Oh, I've heard that you've got this new game." It was like me, and
yeah,
people were okay with that. Like, I mean, I sat with Hector and Annie and Anna and like a whole bunch of people, and
mhm,
half the games were. I'm going to say like actually less than half the games were from someone else, and more than half of them were me just saying, "Oh, would you like? Are you up for playing one of these?"
yeah,
And then people are like, yeah, sure. And then we also got my game with the longest ever title played, which got a really nice review from Kate, who said that it was the kind of thing that if I had invited them to a table to play this game, they would have said no because it had slightly scared them. But
mhm,
once they actually got into it, once they'd actually started doing their thing, they found that the guidance was just enough so that they really
mhm.
enjoyed playing it. Which is like if someone who thought that they were going to hate it actually really loved it, and they'd actually said those words, "I loved it," then that's really nice for
That's
the
a
ego.
really good thing. Hey, so yeah,
But
you've got lots of good compliments and things from the weekend to take away. So even if
but
it
I
wasn't
guess
quite the
there's
right
this
audience.
niggling thing in my head saying all of those times that it was played, it was you pushing it. Do you deserve to do this? And like then there's a whole imposter syndrome and being like, yeah, I don't know if these games. I mean, frankly, the fact that one of the game like Hyogi, I didn't suggest that game. That
Mhm.
was someone else saying, "Hey, I really want to play this game." It's like, "Yeah, I'm up for playing
Mm.
Yogi. Can we play with the wild cards as well?" And they were, "Yeah, absolutely. I've got both of those games in this box." So that was
Mhm.
really nice. I mean, they'd clearly chosen that game to
Yeah.
be one of the games that they took to the convention, which
Mhm.
is, a really nice compliment. And hopefully, I mean, I don't know if this is just needless anxiety. Maybe this is just a result of the fact that that game came first and it's been going on for so long. Maybe it's just a result of how it was actually marketed properly by a company that wasn't me.
Mhm.
But like it feels like, yeah, I'm now confident enough in that game to say yes, people have enjoyed it, people have had a good time with it.
Mm.
But have people had a good time with everything else? I don't feel as a human totally confident enough about that, even though people, and it's like,
Mm.
what do you expect, Bez? People said they enjoy it when they played it, so that's like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think so. You know, so it's perfectly human, to feel imposter syndrome, and I think
Mm-mm.
actually what you've had. I mean, so from listening to all that and from knowing you and from having been to various conventions, I think that it's often that the biggest and most impressive the biggest and most impressive bird could feel a bit weird when it's put into an enclosure where there are a whole load of, I don't know,
Lions,
well,
giraffes.
not necessarily something that's going to attack it or
No,
anything,
I meant like a
fish or
bunch.
something, for
Oh
example.
yeah.
So it's a different thing, and it might be that actually, um, this metaphor is getting out of hand, but it might be that actually, you're a really, really impressive type of water bird, and so you can play in the water, with the fish, but you're still not a fish. And so sometimes, when you're trying to go from one area to another, then it can just feel really weird because the things that you normally do just, yeah, they don't quite work. And people have gone there,
Mm.
with LARP as the top thing that they're going to do. And they're like, right, we've gone there, we're going to do some, we're going to do, you know, you know, these things and those things, and that's who I'm going to mainly dress up as, and then I'm going to go and talk to so and so as my, about my costume or whatever, and then we're going to, practice out, our
Absolutely,
fighting
and some
skills.
people had
Yeah,
been doing their LARP character for like so many years,
yeah.
and like it was amazing the history that they had, and yeah, they had like every day. I mean, if you look back to the um yeah whiteboard, that
Mm.
like the amounts of stuff
So
going on.
they're just not going to think about, they're not going to have a game at the top of their mind, because it's something they just
Mm-mm.
haven't thought about. So there is that thing that you're a different sort of, you're a different sort of industry coming in and saying,
Mm-mm.
hey, have you thought about that? And I think to get to get people who really liked it in the end, that's actually been some great advertising, for yourself.
Mm-mm.
Maybe they'll come along to board game conventions and go, "Hey, yes, I like these as well. Let's do this too." You've just maybe you've
You're
just
right.
introduced them to, to an even more expensive hobby.
I mean, I look at this and basically everything is taking half the day, which
Mm,
is usual for, you know, yeah, there were a couple of games which were being played, which were miniatures, and like, hey, everything there is like, except for the charity raffle, and everything there is several hours, except for Bez's brilliant 2 p.m. event.
mhm,
And
yeah,
yeah, that if you're if you're at the 2 p.m. event, it's yeah, I think you're right. It was just the wrong place, and I slightly misjudged it. I thought it was going to be slightly more board gamey than it actually
yeah,
was. But I did embrace it. I'm really glad that on Saturday I got myself, ready. I put on my darker clothes, that like burgundy
yeah,
leggings, and my grey, and they had something to cover the red top, so that was all good, and had so much fun with that, and that's
mhm,
like, yeah, made a couple of new friends, and I do,
yeah,
as a human, I'm really grateful But I think, yeah, you know what? Dragon Meat, I'm not making a new game for, well, I'm going to have instructions for
Mhm.
several new LDEC games that are currently unavailable.
Nice.
And so those instructions will be given away for anyone who's got an LDEC. And if I run out of the printed copies, then people can get them from,
Mhm.
online. And
Cool.
that's what I'll be doing. But I mean, I just told you how many games I've got. It's ridiculous. I've got like yeah, I
A
think
lot.
I was. Someone asked me, "Hey, how many games have you actually made?" And then I counted, and it was like, "Yeah, I've got 10 that are just here."
Mhm.
And yeah, that's a lot. I don't need more games to be
Yeah.
showing off. I feel like Knizia can get away with doing a lot because they've got publishers doing
Mm.
stuff. I mean, Tagmeyer can get away with a lot because Button Shy 12 games a year. There's
Yeah.
other designers, there's other things, and they are primarily thinking about, and they are good marketers. They've got a
Mhm.
nice team. And
Yeah.
I think for me, I would probably like to have limit it to 5 games a year. I know that sounds like still a lot,
5 games can still be a lot.
but
But
that's
your
my
games are all
limit
great.
on totally new games that people will be able to play. And that's so, yeah,
Mhm.
next year, maybe you'll see a bunch of new games. And then I might have a new game for my leaving do because I mean, it's my leaving do. Of course, I'm going to make
Why
something for
not?
that. I was actually, I had a couple of ideas, but yeah, after that, you won't see anything new from me until UK Games Expo
Cool.
2024. So that will be
Okay.
my annual. I'm making new games for UK Games Expo. That's my vague plan.
Cool. Cool. Excellent.
Thank you so much for letting me lament, letting me go through this, Jess.
No,
It's
it's been
always
fine.
lovely. And thank you, everyone, for being parts of this. And now, Jess, do you have a question of the day? Question of the day. Here, it's a little question before we go on our way. Or do you want to just ask the greeting cards thing again?
I don't know. I haven't thought about a question of the day.
Okay, everyone, do you send out Christmas cards? How many do you
Yeah,
send out? That's the question.
that
I
is a
sent out
good
zero.
question.
That's an easy
We
answer.
we actually send in the post, we send a few, like 10, 15 or so in the post. But we do make sure that we give one to all of our neighbours. And
Oh, maybe I
we
should.
are so
Hmm.
we're the last house on the street. We normally give to the whole street, and we're number 67. So that tells you how many streets how many
66.
plus there are a few along the other road as well. So
Wow.
yeah, so I mean this is partly why I'm making Christmas cards, because I'm like, actually, I would like to have a whole load of Christmas cards as well.
So my question is, do Christmas cards really bring you together with your neighbors?
Well, it means that we know the names of some of our neighbours, which is a start.
I mean, I'm tempted because, like, in my stairwell, I'm going to say there's about 11 people, about
Mm,
11 houses, okay? So,
yeah.
I live, there's one door facing the street. And once
Hmm.
you've come in there, let's say you were able to unlock every door inside,
Hmm.
which, they do have keys, so you can't just
Yeah.
come up and open that door. But if it's have access to about 11 households. And so I'm thinking of just giving games away. Like, I'm actually thinking of a game about quickly grabbing cards and judging them against free descriptions because there's a lot of quite cute things there.
Mm.
Although some people say that the eyeballs aren't, well, the eyeballs are a bit grisly. Um, you've seen the eyeballs, right?
Yeah, yeah, but it's
But,
fine. So you'd have
for
11. So hang on, there's 11 including your
Yes,
household.
so I'm going to give away 10 things, basically. And so I thought I'd just
That'd
kind
be
of
lovely.
do that, type up a wee note saying, hey, I hope you're generally well. It's been a while since I've been here. This
Mhm.
is a bit more about, like, I did slip a little note through everyone's door just before I got here. When I say just before I got here, I mean just before I moved all my stuff into here. But
Yeah.
yeah, one of them phoned me back, which was lovely, to say, hello, thank you for the lovely thing. And now I see them on the stairwell,
Mhm.
and I should remember their name, but I don't. But yeah, at least I
See,
know who that person is.
this way, they will send. Well, some of them will send you notes back, so then you'll know
Mm,
what their names are. So
should I
we
put
have a
Merry
little bit of
Christmas on
paper.
it? Should I, like, because
Uh,
maybe they don't celebrate Christmas, it should just be happy holidays, whatever you're up to. Even if you don't celebrate Christmas, I'm sure that
yeah.
you're aware that there's this big Judeo-Christian thing happening right now.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
like a little kind of snarky humor. Well, let's talk about Overture. What are you up to? You can share a button if you want to. What are your priorities? What do you need to do? What do you want to do? Um, I would feel better if after our talk, I get my arse outside and I do a bit of walking. I'm going to have a bit more of a wander and a ponder, as I like to call it, and listen
Mm.
to some podcasts and ponder some games and maybe stay outside for an hour. Then I'm going to do some. Oh, wait a minute. I do have to chat to someone at some point. I said that I was going to do some mentorship for someone who was a finalist in one of the previous LDEC contests. I'll make sure that I'm back for that. I'm
Mm.
also going to do a bunch of postage because there's some postage I need to sort out. Some things for um, someone who's going to help me at Dragon Meet. I want to send them the latest games. I want to just the latest two games.
Mhm.
Um, I
Yay.
want to send review copies to the two reviewers, and I want to also send a couple of other things for postage, post and
Mm.
send emails. That's going to be my big thing. Send emails. Um, yeah, get in touch with Jigamic and other companies like Jigamic's really the priority and see if they can help me. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get into that. That's a bit personal. That's a bit confidential. Yeah, confidential. That's the word
Yes.
I'm looking for. I should stop saying too much about I haven't said anything, but I was about to say something that might be confidential, but I stopped myself.
Don't say it
So
then.
yeah,
Yeah.
boom. I'm good at keeping secrets. No, I'm not. But I try hard. And I haven't actually said anything that anyone would be really bothered by. Oh, I can say this is totally not confidential. I've got art. Um, yes, there's art. But yes, and what are you up to, Jess?
I am so I need to do the last little bits on the Kickstarter. I need to, redraw some of the letters on the Penguins card. So while the card is done, that I just want to, some of the lettering on it needs a little bit of tidying up. I want to double check some of the instructions on the back, make sure it's great. Rob Harper, who is absolutely lovely, looked it over the other day and gave me a couple of suggestions. So I want to, look at those and make sure that make sure that all works. Um, I also need to do some sort of pre-sending out stuff for that Kickstarter. So I need to make sure I've got enough envelopes, and I don't think I have at the moment. That's not the envelopes that the cards come with, but that's the envelopes to send it in.
Yes.
Um, and so these are A6 cards. They'll be going in the A5 envelopes. So I need to make sure I've got enough of those, and I also need to make sure I've got enough of the really big ones because I want to send um, so some of them have some people have backed the previous cards as well, which are the A5 size. So I need to make sure that I can send those. So all works out, all okay. Um, then I need to do some looking at spreadsheets for the people from the United States and Canada who have backed Library Labyrinth but not yet paid their shipping. So I need to chase them up about shipping because we're going to send the copies of Library Labyrinth. Some of them are going straight to the United States to be fulfilled there. So I need to make sure that I've got their shipping so we can actually get them a place on the ship, essentially.
And if you want to check out the Kickstarter, then the
Yay!
links are over
Go and have
there.
a look. It is
Um,
Penguins. Penguins, a game on a Christmas card. Or indeed, find me at Twitter while it still exists, which it still does at the moment. Um, but also you can probably search me on Facebook. We're also Descent Games on Facebook, but Twitter is still where I hang out the most, I'm afraid.
Now, at this point, it's time to recap and wrap up before we finish up. So, to recap and wrap up, we decided that time to do your own thing is brilliant. We talked about a gamer's gaming getaway quite a bit, about me setting up a birthday leaving do thing, about Valentine's Day, about game industry conference, and I decided that it's not worth me coming back from Germany for. I mean, you only have to go up for Reading, so it's yeah,
Mhm.
sure, it's
It
60
might be
quid
worth it.
plus.
Yeah.
It's a lower cost for you.
Mhm.
So, but I could get to spend a few more days in a country that's new to me, and potentially I would.
Yeah.
I feel like I would rather have a day or like 2, 3 days of wandering around and playing games with a lovely friend than yeah, being in
Yeah.
Birmingham. Yeah, but at this, it's been a lovely chat, and we talked about the Penguin game and greetings cards and what that could possibly be in the future. We talked about the notion of yes, it's not just about what you make, but the context in which you do it. And sometimes don't do like two brand new games for like this tiny convention. Like, and again, like if I'd done like, yeah, but I could have done like a tweak on like one of the LARPs, and that would have been a lot
Mm.
less stressful because I could have kept working on it until the last minute, and I wouldn't have had to go through all the publishing. And I think that would like that's the thing. Like I'm trying to remember. Yeah, as that probably got more attention than my other things, which is fair enough because that's what the people are there for. But it
Mhm.
felt like, oh, but
Yeah.
but anyway, I've got to get over that.
Yeah.
But
Just looking at the games the convention in February, the games industry one, then that it would cost me £64 and 40 pence to go there on the train. So actually, it would be double. What it? Yeah. So it's yeah. There aren't any advanced tickets for that journey. I've just looked at that particular day
and you've
online.
only got one publisher who's definitely there, so
Yeah. It's a bit, yeah. Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure they will have other people. I'm sure that, Asmodee will be represented in some manner. But beyond Cubicle 7, the fact that no one else is really there yet is a bit.
Yeah.
But I,
Well,
I
it's
do
also
hope
the
I
fact,
do hope that
yeah.
it works out well. And I
Hmm.
would like there to be a board game based thing. I mean, I kind of would like there to be more events. And so
Mm,
I say I'm conscious that some people could see this as, oh, Bez, you're bad mouthing this. Don't you want people to go there? And sure, if you are nearby, if it makes sense for you, like I would love you to go there. And honestly,
mhm,
like if I were thinking, okay, it's costing me £124 total to be there, I don't have anything else that I need to do that I could really prioritize on that day, then sure. And for a lot of shopkeepers, if you think it's worth it for you,
mm,
then please go for like and I do think that if I were in the UK, I probably would be going because I do want to support these
mm,
new endeavors. And obviously, London Toy Fair is brilliant, but that's
mm,
very toy focused. It's not hobby game focused. And so, having an actual industry only hobby focused event
mm.
would be really nice, but
Yeah.
it's not worth it for me personally. But if you want,
Yeah. Yeah, for me at the moment, it's more that I just don't know enough information. So it's not that I'm thinking it's not worth it. It's just that I'm looking at it and going, okay, well, I don't actually know enough about, what's going to be on there, and I would like to. But I think, I make decisions about going to Games Expo and I make decisions about going to Aircon months ahead of time. But everything else, it's fairly last minute for me.
mm-mm.
Well,
So, I mean, it could be
yeah.
that 2 weeks beforehand,
Mm.
they've announced, hey, there's all these
Yeah, that would be
people coming,
great.
these are all the talks, and then you say, oh, that actually sounds valuable. Like if they've got
Fabulous.
to talk
Love
about
it.
this, like if at least one of those talks is valuable to you, and
Mhm.
at least some of the publishers are like, oh, I'd really like to connect with them and show them my stuff, whatever.
Mhm.
Then hopefully there'll be some opportunity. Um, Anyway, I am stuffed by beds in all of the places. Tomorrow I'm talking to Hua Siang, who is a artist and 3D modeler from Malaysia. We'll be talking about what 3D modeling looks like from
Mhm.
them. Jess, where do you like to be found?
Come and find me on Kickstarter and back. But if not, come and look me up on Twitter for as long as it exists, where I am Descent Games, or come to Facebook where I'm also Descent Games, or in fact come directly to descentgames.com.
Hmm. And for all of those people, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, everyone who's been
Thank
watching,
you.
whether you've been chatting along or just lurking. It's all good. So much love. And the only thing left to say is, as always, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Do 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 do. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go through. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye, everyone.